Hi, beautiful, sensitive souls. Welcome to Surviving to Thriving, where we address how to move from struggle and just surviving in a world that's too big, too loud, too busy, just too much, to a place of calm and actually thriving as highly sensing people. I'm your host and high sensory coach, Tammy Goen, and I'm so glad that you're here. And this month, we're talking about relationships and ultimately developing harmonious relationships. And I want to start with a quote like I like to do. So what I usually like to have you do is just kind of take a quiet moment, close your eyes if you're comfortable, and really absorb, listen to, and absorb the quote. And today's is, difficult relationships are like rough waters, but they can lead us to the shores of self-growth and understanding. And I did a bunch of research, could not figure out who to attribute this quote to, but I'm so glad that I found it. And, we'll see as we go along that this can take the meaning of, moving away from particularly challenging relationships to actually developing, experiencing growth and shift within those relationships that we choose to hold on to. So I'm going to start this week, bear with me, on the most challenging aspects of relationships. So then we can move on to brighter pastures as we go forward in the month. So we are going to be talking first about toxic or unsupportive relationships, those that just really don't resonate, that are really a struggle for us. And, the reality is it can be pretty intense if we talk about this topic, but it's really important. So I encourage you to just, if it becomes too heavy, just take some, nice deep breaths, use any of your tools. Go to your happy place for a moment. You can, of course, always stop and come back if you're watching the recording. But bear with me with this because it's something that pops up so frequently. It's probably 90% of the time when I talk with someone new who's highly sensing, this is part of what they bring. It's this struggle in relationships, especially those that really are not resonating and are really so challenging that it takes up all of their bandwidth. So that's what we're going to start with. And we can, we're going to start just talking about romantic relationships. We'll be hitting a variety, but within that realm of romantic relationships, whether that's in a marriage or someone that you're dating, whatever the level of commitment it is there, we do have the possibility of, connecting with people that are really not good for us. And the reality is also that we as HSPs, as highly sensing people, do tend to be more likely to attract those people around us, and especially in romantic partnerships that are not healthy, that are going to trigger us in various ways. And, some of the reasons are, if we look at some of the characteristics of us being highly sensing, that tends to be things like having a deep level of compassion, not wanting to make waves or upset anybody, not wanting things to be difficult, to have any kind of disharmony. So we just kind of smooth things over. Those tend to be, common responses and interactions for us. We can often become enabling if we are not wanting to address these things. So those relationships become very draining. And then we also tend to second guess ourselves pretty easily. I certainly do this myself as well. And when we start to second guess, we can tell ourselves things like, well, everyone seems to think that he's really great. So maybe I'm missing something, maybe I'm doing something wrong. I must not be seeing things right. Those kinds of things, those types of self-doubt can lead us to stick with someone longer than is, beneficial for us. So let's look at some points that will help us. First of all, it's really, really important to acknowledge that it's just not okay to be with people who repeatedly put us down, trick us, participate in stonewalling or gaslighting all the time, just always making you feel less than, unhappy, unsupported. And sometimes even to the point of feeling crazy or like we don't know what we're doing or talking about. And it is not necessary for any relationship, and in particular with a romantic relationship. That's just not necessary. It's not something that we need to do just so that we don't hurt someone's feelings or not give enough benefit of the doubt. If you're in a relationship right now that is not resonating for you, most likely you have had that show up where you're just constantly, repeatedly giving the benefit of the doubt, looking at things in a different way, even though it just really, really feels terrible. And I put my heart goes out to you for such a situation, if that is you at the moment. So before because we are feeling crazy or like we're completely unreasonable or there's just something wrong with us, it's important to take that step and say, hey, what's going on here? Is this okay for me? Is it reasonable for me to be dealing with these things? Now, we need to take responsibility always in relationships for what our part of things are, of course. But if we are running into these things over and over and over, and we just are completely exhausted, we just never feel happy, there's just always something that feels wrong, then it's a good time to look at it and say, what am I either not listening to? What am I missing? And of course, it can really help to talk with someone who's not connected with that other person to get less biased. Of course, if we're with people who are supporting us, they tend to be a little more biased, but at least getting that external perspective of what they see. But remembering that when you are in a relationship, no one else sees that dynamic. They see it differently because they are on the outside. So really getting to that point where we can honor ourselves and say, yeah, this doesn't feel right. Let me think about this. And sometimes it can help to work with a coach or a counselor or someone, especially if you think that you're in a situation with a narcissist or someone who's just really, really toxic and you don't know how to move beyond that. And I will be talking about how to make this happen, how we can decide this is not healthy for me. I need to make a change. But for now, I'm going to move on to family members and in any kind of relationship that just doesn't seem to work, as in is really challenging, always, draining your energy. So family, generally speaking, except when we marry into them, of course, but our primary families, we don't get a choice on, right? We can't say, oh no, I choose to not be your sibling, your child, your whatever, unless we take that point at some level to completely remove ourselves, which we hope is always, a very, very last effort and doesn't happen very often. But when we are in those relationships with family, that we have those people that just really push our buttons, that are just so much work, that really drain us. And there are behaviors and most things about people we can't change. We can facilitate some changes by changing ourselves, but we ultimately cannot change people. We cannot change their behavior directly. So sometimes it's a matter of honoring ourselves and knowing this person pushes my buttons. It's not healthy for me to spend very much time around them. How can I manage that? And being able to set some boundaries about what is okay, what you're going to allow, what you're not going to allow. So we'll talk about that more as well. But that is one thing that's very challenging with our families, because we don't have that choice. And sometimes it's even, as a highly sensing person, if we're working or parenting a highly sensing child, or even one that's not highly sensing, they have their needs, right? And if that becomes really taxing for us, even if that's not a negative relationship or a negative person, that relationship as it's unfolding is not being healthy. So we need to look at those things like boundaries and recognizing when things are just not working as they are. So a lot of things that are really helpful are taking breaks, especially, so we're talking about families, when things that you can't always, choose. If we take breaks, sometimes we opt out of events that everyone else is doing. You might be hearing things from people. How come you always back out of everything? And maybe you don't want to have that conversation, and you just explain that, you're too busy or whatever you want to present to them. But allowing that option for yourself to say, this is going to be really, really stressful for me. I need to back away from that. And then just accept that some things are just not going to resonate, just not going to be healthy for you. And that's when it is good to minimize. Acknowledging what you need. You can work on sharing what you need with people, of course, and seeing if that can help. And setting those boundaries will create some ripple effects as well into what people are going to present to you. Once you make it very clear and maintain those boundaries, this is not going to be okay with me, then that can help to shift those behaviors. Again, we can't control them, but we can create some kind of ripple effect that can definitely be helpful. So being really aware of what you need and being able to share that. And then if we look at friends and, just even acquaintances, we don't have to be friends with everyone. And I'm going to say that again, because this comes up quite frequently for, highly sensing people, this idea that I can't offend anyone. I have to have every single person on the planet like me and be okay with me. So I have to befriend everyone. I have to, even to the point of liking everyone equally. Sometimes that pops up. But this idea that I can't not be friends with someone, that would be, rude, not compassionate, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is we do not need to be friends with everyone. And not everyone is our ideal friend. The person, our avatar, if you will, of friendship. It's just not going to happen that way. Not everyone is the right person for us. And it's okay and important to acknowledge that, to recognize, what, this person just doesn't work for me. And I need to do something about that, instead of trying to, again, second or give the benefit of the doubt, or say, well, I need to look at it differently, or maybe I'm just being too sensitive. Maybe I'm not looking at it from the right place. If we really pay attention to our gut and our heart, and notice I hear this quite often too, when I'm up with this certain person, I get so exhausted. They talk constantly. I hardly have anything to say myself, to put in myself. And by the time we're done, they've talked for 2 hours, and I can't do anything the rest of the day. I'm just spent. That happens more often than you might even realize, actually. So we need to be aware when people just don't resonate, or it's just not good for us. And I think that's a good focus point. It's not just that we don't enjoy certain things or we get tired, but it's really just not good for us. And as an example, I did have a friend that I was building a relationship with someone years ago. And it was the first time I'd ever had to stop and say, what am I doing here? This is really exhausting me. I'm not getting enough of the feel good, happy times to counterbalance the stressful anxiety, those moments where I was just not enjoying that friendship. And I had put some work into it. All relationships take work, right? But at some point I realized that was just not healthy for me. And I had to step up and say, you know what, you're a great person, and I'm sorry this isn't going to work, but it's just not. And I gave examples, of course, and said, these are the things. And I had already said, these are some things that are not working for me. I would like to see if we can do things different. It didn't work. It didn't happen. It didn't hold, whatever. So I had to just say, I need to take care of me and not be trying this anymore. And so I did. And while it felt very challenging at that moment to tell someone, I'm sorry, I can't be your friend, that as an HSP, that's really, really challenging. I can tell you that. But the second that I did that, I felt immediate, really intense relief. I just knew that was the right thing. And even though I had a few thoughts later about, well, I wonder how that person's doing with this, and what will that experience like for that person? Again, I don't own those feelings, and I can't change things for people. So I had to let that go. But I also found myself saying, wow, I'm really glad I'm not putting so much energy into that anymore. And it just reinforced my decision. And, I did the pat on the back thing. I mean, it was something that had to happen for sure. So just recognizing that if you're finding yourself constantly drained around someone, constantly in some kind of emotion that you don't like, or making excuses, if you're doing these kinds of things over and over and over, it's time to probably look and say, is this a healthy relationship for me? So the idea here to remember too is that, people can disappoint us, but it doesn't mean that they're toxic or abusive or bad people in some way. They can just not resonate. We have all kinds of different people that we like to have in our lives, and some make sense, I guess, or you would be expecting it. And sometimes we have people that we think, oh, I really like this person, I like this, and this. And then once you get to know them, you realize there's some stuff in there that it just doesn't work. And there are so many different types of people out there. There are plenty. We can have plenty of friends. We can just pick those people or our partners that really resonate. And then we can be in that place of high vibration and joy and enjoying the time with them instead of feeling depleted and always trying to fix things or make things okay, or come to some determination that, I need to make this an okay relationship. I just need to work harder. But just saying, yeah, sometimes we just say, sorry, this isn't for me. And we do have to acknowledge that piece of, we don't have to be friends with everyone, and not everyone needs to like us. And that is a tough one for us. So recognizing any of those behaviors that feel hurtful, where we even start to feel resentful, if you've ever had someone in some kind of relationship, a friendship, a work relationship, even a romantic relationship, where you find yourself just feeling resentful towards somebody quite often, we of course need to look at, what our part is in things and say, okay, well, what am I doing? What changes can I make? But if it's something that's just constant, and instead of feeling uplifted and enjoying your time around someone, you feel depleted and resentful, something is going on there that we need to really look at. So honoring ourselves, having a really strong practice. I come back to this all the time, but having a really strong practice for calming our nervous system and taking care of ourselves. And that is really important. If we're not doing that, we're not likely to be having really solid relationships, because we're not taking care of us. We need to take care of us, and then we can, foster these really great relationships, because we're coming from a place of honoring us and saying, this is what I need in a relationship. And so I'm going to offer this to you, and that's what I expect to receive. So very important to be very clear what we want, but also to honor ourselves and say, yep, this is what I want. This is what I'm getting. Those don't jive. And so I'm going to say, it's time to move on. So one thing that's really helpful to give ourselves some support is to try to include as many supportive people in our inner circle as possible. And that might mean as many highly sensing people as we can find, which sometimes can be challenging, but also those that just at least listen to what you have to offer. And even if it's different, still support you and respect you for that, and let go of any of those that are not giving you those things. And sometimes that means, especially for highly sensing people, that our circle tends to narrow, and we tend to not be, I have my best friend is an exception to this. She has so many friends, but typically we have fewer and closer friends. We tend to not be those that have 100 people on the list to invite to a party or something, because we really appreciate those intense, deeper, intimate connections with people, and not so much the surface level stuff. So we do tend to have, smaller groups of friends anyway. But then if we really start paying attention to what our needs are and honoring ourselves and allowing our needs to be put out there and saying, these folks over here, they're great people, but they just don't resonate for me. And then having them be either just on the outside of the circle, where once in a while you might connect with them, but not putting a lot of energy into it, can be really, helpful and good for honoring yourself. And that's the key, really, is that honoring piece, right? So the more we come to these places where we're just drained, we're frustrated, we're resentful, well, we're feeling like these relationships are just so much work. They become almost all work. And you start to try to balance or weigh out, what am I getting from this relationship? And what am I giving? And are those fairly even? Or are there days when, gosh, I get so energized or raised up by this person? And if there's a lot of those times, but you have a little squabble here and there, no relationship is perfect, right? But if we're spending most of the time being frustrated and feeling our vibration lower, our energy lower, we're getting wiped out. And then you've got just a few little times when, oh yeah, that was fun and that was fun. But man, the majority of the time, this other stuff is happening, then it's probably time to make a change. And I mentioned that I would say some ideas of how to talk with people, especially if they're family and you don't have a choice. So one of the things we can do is to just present to someone and say, hey, you can fill in the blank with, I appreciate our relationship, or I really want to be a good, sibling, whatever it is. And what I've realized is these are some things that I need that I think I'm not getting right now. Or, hey, when these kinds of things happen, I get triggered and I go off in this direction, and we don't have a really solid foundation or a solid interaction or whatever. And this is what would help for me. Those kinds of things we can present to people and hope that they're heard in a nice light and are taken for what they're worth, and maybe even some changes offered. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens just over and over, that you are feeling like, oh my gosh, I just can't spend time with this person. And sometimes being okay with that and saying, yep, I need to minimize my time with this person, or make sure that I'm in a big group and don't spend any energy on that person. Like a family gathering, obviously a lot of people are going to be there, but you don't have to focus your energy on that person. And if they are spending too much time or energy on you, those are times to go take a break, to take a walk around the block, to just spend some time, if there's no other place that you can go, like in the bathroom, and just do some deep breathing. Find that time when you can have your alone time, or some time to regroup, so you can come back from a place of neutrality at least, or a little bit of compassion, some patience. And if that's just too difficult, then finding an out, so you don't have to deal with that. And that is one of the most challenging types of relationships to manage, is family, when we don't have a choice. And sometimes we can separate and sometimes we can't. So sometimes it's just that part of taking care of ourselves that is so, so important. So before I wrap up today, I would like to just take you through a little visualization so that you have another tool. So if you're comfortable, as usual, go ahead and get in a nice upright position, but close your eyes or just stare off ahead. Bring in some nice breath. Focus on that breath as it comes into your body. Allow it to resonate around your heart space, and then let it flow into every cell of your body. Just allow you to relax. And then whether you have your eyes open or closed, go ahead and picture yourself sending out energy to the world. And however that energy looks, you're sending out a very specific kind of energy to the world, designating all of the things that you want and need in relationships, so that those people who can accommodate that can be drawn back to your field. So again, what does that energy look like that you want reciprocated? You're sending out this loving, compassionate, supportive energy out to the universe to attract like-minded others who can resonate with that particular energy, and then allow them into your field. So see if you can feel that flow, that give and take, bringing that air and energy and love and compassion into you from the world, and then sending out with each exhale that energy to others that is what you want like-minded people to experience and also send back your way. So just visualize sending out that energy, and maybe see it kind of rest on a variety of, some faceless people out there, just folks that are kind of representing all of the potential people out there that could be connected with you. And just see that energy kind of float down and surround a variety of different people. It won't be every person. It's not everyone is going to resonate with that particular energy, but that energy that you are sending out, that is you from your core, from your heart, that you are sending out, is going to attract that very same resonant vibration in others. And only those that are going to resonate with that vibration, with that energy, that love, that compassion level that you send out, are the ones that are going to be coming into you. Just allow that flow to and from to happen, seeing that energy rest and be received by certain people out there that you don't know yet. Knowing that this is allowing your field to open for the right people to bring in and expand that inner circle of yours with just supportive, understanding, aware people that resonate with that particular energy, your energy. And then be aware of where you are in the room, wherever you're at. Be aware of your feet on the floor or your rear on the seat, wherever it is. Just be aware of your space. Make sure that you feel present again. And this is something that you can just work on anytime that you want to send that energy out there so that you can have that coming back to you. Right, so it's been lovely, as always, to have you today. Thank you for joining me on this journey toward thriving. And next week, we'll continue to focus on relationships, but we'll be looking at how we can share our trait with others so that we can receive that support, sort of like we're sending that energy out visually and drawing that in. We can be direct about how we can have people help people to help us. And be supportive and understand us better. So we will be talking about that next week. And as always, I would really love to chat with you directly. So feel free to reach out. I have my email in the show notes and other information on the show page. And of course, all of my information, my contact information, but also many, many resources are on Linktree. And if you're not familiar with that, it's linktr.ee/ and then just my name, Tammy Goen. All kinds of information on there. So have a really, really amazing day, and I will see you next week.